Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Today we're going to talk about Mercury's conjunction with Venus. Mercury has been retrograde, has come back into the sign of Virgo, and is conjoining with Venus. Now remember, these two planets had a mutual reception in Libra and Virgo and are now coming together through the retrograde. And then what's going to happen is they're going to swap places. Venus is then going to enter her rulership in the sign of Libra, and Mercury will turn direct in the sign of Virgo. It's a really interesting combination of planetary events, if you think about, especially if you think about the whole thing, which we've unpacked over the past couple of weeks in numerous videos. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to talk about 3 themes to watch for and 3 lessons that go with it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share a comment or a thought and reflection in the comment section. If you have a story to tell about the way in which the planets are showing up right now with this combination, use the hashtag GRABBED. Really appreciate that. Or send us an email, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be aggregating more of those stories in the next weeks. All right, well, before we get into it, I also want to take you over to my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I want to tell you about my upcoming course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. The Year 1 program begins on November 12th. You can go to the courses tab, scroll down to the first year program to learn more about it. It's about 1 year long, just a little under 1 year long. There's 30 classes on the year, plus breakout study sessions in between units. We have guest teachers that come in. So I think there's 42, probably around 50 classes available to you on the year, which is almost weekly. You know, it is just a really wonderful program. There's as much material there as you want. So there's a lot of bonus material that you can take advantage of if you want. If you want to stick with just the main classes, there's 30 of them. You can do that too. So it's just chock full of information. It starts on November 12th, which is Saturdays, meets about 2 to 3 hours at a time. You check out this video here on the page. You'll see some of my alumni, recent alumni talking about it. In between sessions, our tutors lead breakout study tutoring groups, so that if you want some extra support, there's an interactive group forum discussion staffed by tutors. You can ask questions throughout the year. You can email me anytime throughout the year with questions. You get lifetime access to all the recordings, so if you can't make it live, you can go that route. You can sign up at the bottom of that page by using the early bird payment, which saves you about $500 off. Or if you want, you can stretch out the entire tuition over the course of 12 payments on the year. It's a little bit more expensive to do that, but that is definitely a way to make it more manageable. Finally, if people are needing some additional help, we have tuition assistance. Need-based tuition option is always there if you want to take one of my courses, but you can't afford it. We don't want people to be priced out of studying a spiritual science like astrology. So if that is you, please use the tuition assistance early. We ask that people sign up right away because we're trying to avoid, an onrush of like 100 applications all at the last minute or whatever. It's a little overwhelming. It takes a little bit longer for us to process these applications. So we just ask that if you're interested in using tuition assistance, apply now. All right. Well, thank you guys for letting me promote my program. I appreciate you letting me do this. I'm in, promotion mode happens. My fall and spring programs, and people who watch my channel know the drill. Let's take a look at this transit on the screen today and start getting into Mercury and Venus. So first of all, I think that this is a transit that's really interesting because of, like I was saying earlier, because of everything that's kind of gone into it. This is a transit. Let me just highlight it here really quick. There we go. You can see the two of them coming together today, September 26th. And, this is a transit that has some history to it. We have already seen that Mercury stationed in Venus's sign turned retrograde while Venus was in Mercury's sign. So that's mutual reception. Through Mercury's retrograde, through the new moon, through Cazimi with the sun, switched over into its exaltation in Virgo, now hitting a conjunction with Venus, and then Venus is going to enter her own domicile in Libra, and the two will then be empowered in their own signs after being in each other's signs. It's fascinating. So what I want to talk about is what you can expect to see from this week. Especially, you might have already noticed some of this over the weekend, but this week, here's 3 things to watch for, generally speaking, given the interesting nuances of this conjunction, and then 3 lessons that I think go along with any pairing of Mercury and Venus generally, or this one in particular with Venus in her fall perhaps. So the first one to watch for is completion, agreement, or solution. Why? because we're talking about two planets that have had a mutual interest in one another for several weeks now. And now they're crossing, Mercury is crossed over into its own sign where Venus is in its fall. It has conjoined Venus and is, in a sense, maybe signifying that something is coming to completion now. Something that you've been trying to work out, something, whether that's internally, psychologically, philosophically, something at work, something in love or relationships, a project. Something is reaching a point of synthesis, completion, you're coming to an agreement, or you're finding a solution. And to me, this is probably the most obvious thing that could be happening given the history behind these two planets and how they came together. So watch for that and this would be something that you could notice for like the past 2 or 3 weeks. I would put it like that. Now, number 2 would be a decisive turning point. A decisive turning point because after this happens, Venus picks up dignity and Mercury stations and turns direct. So it's as if whatever they're doing is just simply creating a twist or turn of the plot pretty dramatically. And that would be broadly signified by the fact that Venus picks up dignity, goes from challenging placement to empowered one, that Mercury has dignity but is turning direct from being retrograde. So it's as though their meeting signifies something that is going to 180. And I think probably completion, agreement, or solution go along with this idea, right? That this turning point could be one that broadly represents, finishing something or solving something. The reason I say that is because Mercury is the host of a fallen Venus. Mercury is exalted. It hits Venus. Venus then improves. So again, it's like as though Mercury is offering some kind of help. Well, that's number 3. Help for Venus. That would be the first part of this, and or switching places. Help for Venus because Venus has been debilitated, but it's like if I were hanging out in Mercury's house, in Mercury's temple, and I had like an injury of some kind, and Mercury wasn't there. It turns out that Mercury wasn't there, but Mercury happened to be at my house. I don't know why Hermes would hang out at my house, but frequently Hermes does. I will tell you that. So if Hermes was at my house, they're like, well, I heard that the bat signal went up from my temple that you were in some pain. So I came back to help you with your injury. I have a solution for you because I've got some really good, I've got some CBD oil for you. So could it be that Mercury is bringing some kind of salve or aid or assistance to Venus? Anything Venus ruled, relationships, love, sensuality, an art project, it's like Venus needs some help. And then here comes Mercury, the host, back into its own sign where it is exalted. And suddenly, if you were in my house and you were really hungry, you're like, man, I'm famished, I need something to satisfy my hunger. Okay, well, I'm the host of the house. I can get the cookies. You know what I mean? So having Mercury in its own sign, in its exaltation, there to assist or aid in Venus's endeavor is probably a very positive thing. Now, the last one would be switching places. The two were in each other's signs, in each other's homes. As they come together, they are also crossing over each other, and Venus goes into Venus's home sign while Mercury stations direct in its home sign. So it's as though this coming together represents a swap. Now, that could mean a lot of different things. A swap could be a change of mind, a change of heart, a change of scenery, a change of job, a change of title, a lot of different things. But something that it would signify would be, broadly speaking, two things that have been over here flip-flopping. Like, what was the movie Freaky Friday? Do you guys remember that? I think it was like a mom and her daughter switch places or something like that. I'm loosely remembering this. But so two things swapping or switching places, or a shift of direction such that a kind of reciprocity takes place and debts are paid off. That could be another theme, I guess, to add in. All right. Well, in addition to these 3 things to watch for today, maybe you saw some of this over the weekend, maybe for the next few days as the two planets are then separating, there's 3 lessons that I think we could watch out for. And by the way, people are going to ask me, when does Mercury station? So stations right around October 1st. And into the second and third is when you start to see it turning direct. Well, 3 lessons. Now, these are like to me, these are quintessential Venus Mercury lessons. So the first one is that knowing and loving are both needed. When I told this story at a conference recently, and some of you have heard me tell it before. When I was present there's an astrologer who I happened to be there and present in the room when this astrologer was in the process of leaving his body, passing away. And I observed 2 kinds of lamentation, to put it simply. One was the lamenting that his great work, which was very inspiring, would sort of had come to an end, and maybe prematurely compared to what people had hoped for, or what kinds of other transmissions could have come out of his great mind. So there was a real appreciation of his gnosis, of his knowledge, and his connection to knowledge and wisdom. Not that knowledge and wisdom are exactly the same. You get what I'm saying. And then there were people who were just devastated that the person that they loved was passing. Both were important. Both were really important. In ancient astrology, Rhetorius compares, he asks rhetorically asks the question, why is it that where Mercury is exalted, there Venus is depressed, and where Venus is exalted, there Mercury is depressed? And those are the signs of Pisces and Virgo. This is Virgo, where Venus is currently located in her fall or depression right now, in Mercury's exaltation, while Mercury is exalted and coming back with Venus. What does it mean? And one of the things that it meant for rhetoric, well, he goes on to say, I should say this first. He goes on to say that one of the reasons that one planet is exalted where the other one is in its fall, and vice versa, is that knowledge and sensuality have a kind of archetypal opposition with each other. There's a tension between knowledge and love, or sensuality and rationality, or something like that. So knowing and loving are both needed. Now, knowing could be something like, I know you. I know things about you. Like, one of the things I love most about spending time with my kids is that it's every day and every new year of their life, it's like I come to know them differently, more deeply, and so forth. And it's like, it's like clues of a puzzle that the pieces are slowly coming together, and I can see the dharma, or the like destiny of this soul, and it's fantastic. And then there's loving, and it's similar to knowing, but it's different. If I had to describe the dichotomy in my own experience, I would say that loving is more like the snuggles and hugs and kisses and just the quality laughter and time spent together in the actual enjoyable experience. And then there's the reflecting upon experience and the learning of another person. But aren't they both needed? And I think that goes for God as well, or divinity, or source, whatever word we want to use. It's like astrology is constantly like revealing clues of the puzzle about the nature of God. I have a feeling it won't ever stop, and that it can't ever be, circumscribed with the mind, right? But God loves to give the universe, the divinity loves to give clues as to its nature so that we can know it. And at the same time, there's a need to experience God through loving devotion, through, the ecstasy of dance, or like the Sufis, or the poetry, the love poetry of Rumi, or the passion of the Christ, or the laughter of the Buddha. There's like sensual dimension to the ecstasy, And isn't it true that both are needed? Isn't it true that both are so much a part of what intimacy is? Number 2, one without the other, you feel something's off. Number two is like it. The sensual and logical are both needed. So let's say that we need to both ask ourselves how something feels. And truth for ancient astrologers and beauty were inseparable. And this is why this archetypal dyad doesn't work very well if you try to pit the two against one another and make one dominant over the other. The sensual would be the way in which you look at a situation and you're able to understand something or interact with people, or, you know, find the right response or the way of relating by means of just saying, how does this feel? And is this appealing to my senses? The kind of intelligence that you get when you're walking outside on a beautiful day, and it's the weather and the colors that inform you about something. And then there's logical or mental truth, which is philosophical. It works through, you know, logic, and it comes to conclusions through, you know, rules and different kinds of formulas almost. And that kind of information is also a part of life. It's as though when you're walking through the woods, you also have to sort through data and make decisions. Well, you know, I'm not going to go walking through that marsh because I can't see how deep it is. And I don't know how sticky it'll be on my feet, you know, something like that. So you get sensual data and mental data combined. We all do all the time. But so many times we pit the two against one another. Well, you're a fashionista and you're a brainiac, you know, or something like that. You're the mental logical type, and you're verbose and you like to read, you know. And then on the other hand, you're someone who doesn't like to read and you prefer to do your nails. I mean, these are, you know, exaggerations, right? But those kinds of dichotomies rarely get at the underlying almost like unity, or the underlying interpenetration of the sensual and logical. That they are co-present was a fact for the ancients. The ancients saw beauty and truth as both, you know, byproducts of the philosophical or contemplative lifestyle. If you engage in a spiritual path, your appreciation for beauty and your logical intelligence will both expand in equal proportion. And these are really important things, because this turning point that we're reaching, this shift that we're experiencing, I believe that these tensions might be present somehow within it. So it's worth addressing. And number three, it's okay to change our minds. This has less to do with the tension between Venus and Mercury, and is more just broadly speaking about that flip-flop that they're doing. I recently listened to an NPR podcast that my wife shared with me that I thought was really pretty neat, and it was about the power of changing your mind. And one of the points that was made that I couldn't have agreed with more, and I think is deeply reflected in the Saturn-Uranus dynamic in the sky right now. This one is kind of a microcosm of the same thing, the flip-flopping of these planets in two different signs. We tend to, once we reach a place where, like, well, I know what I believe or think about something, we're closed down and we tend to preach or persecute or defend, you know, our position. And there's something to be said about keeping an open mind, an open heart, and in listening, because some of the most profound things that can happen come when we allow ourselves to change our minds. Not saying that we should have no center, no commitments, that everything is relative or anything like that. But changing our minds is a part of how we grow and how we learn. And sometimes those changes are subtle and sometimes they're big. So it's okay to change your minds. In fact, it's probably in many cases a sign that we are growing and maturing, that we should do so. And remaining open to having our mind changed. These are very noble traits. The I Ching, the Tao Te Ching talk about them all over the place, that a sage is broad-minded and listens and considers. And as they do so, will be allowing of other people to have an impact on us. and to shift and change our hearts and minds about things. It's not just change your mind, it's also change your heart. It's okay to have a change of mind and heart about something. And when you go through the difficult experience of having to change your mind or your heart about something, your empathy for other people can also greatly increase, because you realize how hard it is to open yourself up to something new and to shift your thinking, to reconsider, and how humbling it can be to have to admit to people you love, hey, you know, you might be right about something. Maybe I've been stubborn. Or to admit to ourselves that, you know, I'm not a wishy-washy human being because I've changed my mind. It's okay. I'm a beautiful person and I'm allowed to change my mind. So anyway, just some things that come to my mind. I hope that this has been useful. Don't forget to drop a comment in the comments section, like and subscribe if you haven't. That helps this channel to grow, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate your support. If you have a story to share about this week, use the hashtag grabbed or email us, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. We like to aggregate your stories and share them in storytelling episodes. We'll be sure to do that down the road again. We did one last week, and I think most people seem to really like it. So, all right, well, that's what I have for today. I hope you guys have a great day, great week. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.